to hear from you.
Good. Here we are, Wednesday, March 4th, and starting off some work in this 2026 round of FoodOn Curation. And I think a round of intros, seeing as there's some new folks on, would be welcome. And so, and then we can move straight into business, which is to start curating um, the MIFC, minimum information about food composition. So um, I'm reclaiming host, and I'll just start with my own intro, and then I'll name people on the screen. So I'm Damien Dooley, been working on ontologies for the last, well, since 2013, when I got a job here at the CITGO Center for Disease Genomics and One Health. And um, I've been working in food precisely because this work is in the public health domain, but now we've jumped over into agriculture and um, uh, and food systems in general, philosophy of food even. So I'm totally interested in all things ontological and food related, and that's enough for me. Magali, I see you sort of up in the corner here. How
Hi everyone, I'm Magali Weber. I'm French. I am located in Nantes, in France, and I am working at the French National Institute for Agriculture, Food and the Environment. So I am dealing with many topics, but mainly food. And I am part of the FoodOn Curation group. I have been since 5 or 6 years, perhaps. I don't know, 5 years. I'm old. So nice to meet you all.
Great. Thanks, Megli. Colin, tell us a little bit about your big
Sure.
world.
Hello, everyone. Name's Colin. I'm in the US and Philadelphia. Came to find out about this. I've been doing like some personal research. I'm very interested in like local and seasonal food. And so that brought me into things about like supply chain and semantic web and ontologies, and I found food on. And so some of the interesting things that I'm doing, with recipes, collaboration, mapping, kind of makes sense to be part of these conversations and see what all you are doing at like the bleeding edge of food ontology. So, happy to be here, learn, and see how you all kind of approach this process.
Great. Thanks, Colin. Colin has a really interesting website covering the Northeast US uh, providers of food and tying it into recipe and sourcing ingredients, and with a real note on sustainability. And so, Colin, if you want to share that link to your website over in the chat, that would be welcome. Okay, Rhiannon. Oh, a little bit of a audio thing. Okay, okay. Anusha.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Anusha, and I have my academic background in bioinformatics. And at SIGO SFU, I work as a data creator and co-manage the development of Food on with Damien, mainly to enhance its coverage and to make it more thorough and accurate. And yeah, so happy to see everyone after a long time.
Yeah, great. And Jens, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I remember meeting you in Wageningen.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I joined you guys last year for the hackathon in Wageningen. I'm working for the Dutch National Institute for Public Health and the Environment in the Healthy and Nutritional Food department. So that is kind of my link with Food On, and that we also try to do projects with food ontology. So therefore, it was good to jump into this meeting as well. I will, for the most part, have my camera off because there's other people present in the same room as I am.
Yeah. And Sarah.
Hi, all. I'm Sarah Brinkley at the Periodic Table of Food Initiative. My role is in food data governance, so that touches on both data standards as well as the legal and ethical backing of collecting foods from various locations around the world. Kind of the mission of the PTFI is to analyze um, the kind of known nutrition in food, but also the unknown. So we do a lot of work in like the dark matter of food, kind of unnamed compounds. Maybe we'll put a link in the chat to our global public database, the Periodic Table of Food Initiative, which uses FoodOn very core to the architecture of the data visualization platform. And so have been working with Jenny on these efforts on curating all the metadata for the Periodic Table of Food Initiative. Also contributing a bunch of new foods to FoodOn over the last couple of years. Really enjoyed getting to work with Damien, Anusha, and Magali, and Kai over the time. So good to see you all again. Nice to meet all these new faces. Some welcome breath of life coming into the new year. So good to see you all. I'll pass it over to Jenny, my partner in crime.
Thank you, Sarah. So hello, everybody. My name is Jenny Gallo. I'm working with Sarah as part of the Periodic Table of Food Initiative, and I'm based in Colombia, in Cali, working with the Alliance of Biodiversity and CIAT. And as Sarah just mentioned, we have been working together with FoodOn to be more and more aligned with these developments around food ontology and the development of the PTFI platform. So it's nice to be here starting this new year of work with all of you, and happy to share different ideas and opportunities.
Great. Thanks, Jenny. Indeed, Jenny, Sarah, accompanied FoodOn loyally through its growing pains and hierarchy, studies of hierarchy, and so on. And we're hoping this year is a year full of goodies via the FoodOn table, Python script, and so on. So we'll be working a lot more on these other issues, even if they don't show up in this call, this curation call. Okay, so Kai, yeah.
Hey everyone, my name is Kai Blumberg. Hey, can you hear me?
Yep, great.
My name is Kai Blumberg. I'm a postdoctoral fellow at the ORISE, so it's a national lab, but I'm affiliated with the USDA Food Data Central Group, helping to create metadata standards for them, as well as vocabularies for food on the government side. So I think it's really important to foster these collaborations with OBO. I came out of the OBO world. That's how I was able to get a job at USDA. Just so thanks, Damien, for that. Anyway, so yeah, really happy to help contribute to FoodOn and working with Anusha and others. And yeah, thanks.
Yes, and we have Kai to thank for the content of these upcoming calls with his MIFC specification, which is possibly one of the first ones that will not unite not only American government bodies in their food classification vocabulary, but also stretch across borders, across.
The code will be open source, and anyone around the world can use it.
Right.
I can say that.
Yeah. So, last but not least, Ido. Good to see you again. Oh.
Yeah, let me switch my camera on. There we are. Yeah, it's good to see you again too, Damien, and all the others. So I'm a colleague of Jens, working at the National Institute for Public Health and the Environment, abbreviated with RIVM in the Netherlands. And I've been promoting the use of ontologies to connect the different databases that we have around food and nutrition. And unfortunately, we now have Jens to help us do that technically, because I'm not an expert in that. And I'm very curious to see what the future brings for FoodOn and ontologies in particular. Hopefully we can get the connection with FoodX working too.
Right. Right. That is the other side of the Atlantic, the food vocabulary we need to link to.
Yeah, that's an important part of our work. So.
Okay. So and that touches on one thing, which is that this is the FoodOn Curation meetings can be considered a casual drop-in thing if you guys need to bring in an issue and not have to show up every week. We will focus on the MIFC term mapping as a priority in the next few months. And what else to say? Yeah, that's about it. Okay, and I see there, Magali, you dropped a link to the paper that Ido had contributed to, which is great, in our IVM. Yeah, feel free to drop any other links in the sidebar too. We'll have a text transcript of that. Okay, so last week in the call, Kai gave us a crash introduction to a brief introduction to MIFC. So I thought I'd just screen share so that we're all on the same page about where it is and what it has in it. So, all right, and therefore, let's see which screen. Probably this one. Yep, yeah. I got too many windows, but anyway, here's one more.
Wow. Damien, close some tabs, eh?
Oh man, that's a half a year of me wanting to get back to look at certain things. But okay, MIFC. So Kai has his MIFC specification underneath his own GitHub account.
This is the publicly viewable one. It's development only. The formal one for USDA is in a repo that is not publicly visible. But the important thing is that the enumerations that Damien's going to show are the same here. So we can look at this as a prototype for what will come out from USDA eventually.
Right, and therefore pull requests can go straight to this location for now.
I mean, yeah, pull requests might not. Let's focus on the content and food on side. Yeah.
We'll let you maybe take care of whatever pull requests you deem
Yeah,
necessary.
because this repo is not the main development repo. So I think what
Oh,
from our perspective, from USDA's focus, this is just the one I was developing it in. There's now a USDA one which unfortunately is not public, or not unfortunately, just the reality is it's not publicly. It's USDA controlled, which means that everything here is viewable, so you can look at this. And what FoodOn can do, and what I was hoping that the FoodOn agenda might be able to be doing with this, is to actually map FoodOn terms, or at least come up with definitions for these types of the enumerations. And then that can be something that sits in FoodOn. It could be something that MyFC uses. It could be something that anyone uses.
Right, and so the URL that will really get to the single file that all of our work will be in is to this MIFC YAML file, and this will ultimately contain all the definitions and mappings of the MIFC terms to FoodOn. So I'll just drop that into sidebar chat into there for future reference, and I'll put all these kind of links into the weekly call log, which document here after the talk. Okay, so there you go. Okay, so in the other technical piece is that this YAML file where all these mappings will go is a LinkML specification. So one other thing to get a bit familiar with is LinkML being an open source schema platform, schema definition platform that allows you to describe every field and data type and pick list and relationship between one table and other tables. So whether it was an SQL database you're talking about or a JSON data object, LinkML is providing the flexibility to describe all of these fields. So ultimately, our work goes into a section of the LinkML specification that MIFC has been has written. But until then, the work that we can really do, I've created this Google Sheet open to everybody. I think share mode anyone with the link can edit, so be careful about sharing the link, but it is a document that will contain the FoodOn and collectively decided upon definitions for terms. Ultimately, I guess the MIFC folks can differ from FoodOn, choose to differ about how they define things, but we will, at least in this document, keep track of how we are defining things.
And you don't have to use these labels per se either. If, FoodOn wants to have a different set of, labels, as long as we're trying to cover some of these, then it's all good. So thanks, Damien. I appreciate it.
Right. And so some of these will line up, and I have a little bit more to say about all of that. And okay, so a few other housekeeping notes. You'll see in these tables that they are pick lists of terms, and you'll see that they have an MIFC name, and then the meaning column, and the meaning column is meant to be the mapping over to what FoodOn has as a aligned concept. And it just so happens that the 4 items, ripe, overripe, unripe, slightly ripe, are already defined in FoodOn, and FoodOn already has a definition for each of these. There's a little bit of a shift in terminology. MIFC talks about the description field. And if you were to go and take a look at the MIFC specification in its documentation form, if we go back to the MIFC spec, there is in it a link to the website, GitHub automatically generated documentation form of this YAML data spec. And in it, we've got classes, which are the sort of table oriented views of the specification, slots, which are the field oriented view, and tables can reuse any of these lists of fields. And then at the bottom, there's this enumerations list, and that's what we're focusing on to start. So here, if you're looking at any one of these things, like the food ripeness state, you will encounter a value, meaning, and description table. These are the values being applied to some the language or the pull-down menu list being applied to some food sample record. And the meaning so far is blank, but we would have FoodOn IDs show up here. And the description is blank, but we would also have some just definitions for these terms to offer. So that's the work. And the this particular table here, because there was an exact match, I just popped in the FoodOn IDs. They all, if you click on them, will hyperspace you over to Ontobi, where you can see what the latest FoodOn definition is and where this term is in the hierarchy of things. My internet is a little bit slow these days, but it should show up shortly as a view in Ontobi, this one ontology lookup service. And it shows you that this vocabulary of this fruit ripeness is within this hierarchy of qualities or characteristics of things. So the definition is here in the ontology land. The term IRI is here, and it's within this fruit ripeness parent category. So part of the process of arriving and working through these terms is getting the flavor for the ontologically acceptable way of defining them, and then whether that makes it into MIFC is sort of a one-step removed question. Okay, so
and those ones actually came right out of FoodOn. So there was MIFC being informed by what's in FoodOn. So it's great that you folded in with the meaning and description. So hopefully when that becomes a public standard that USDA is using, it's all there, it's linked to FoodOn. And if PTFI or one of the groups, RIVM or INRA in France, if anyone else comes up with a similar standard, then it's all linked together and FoodOn's sitting right at the heart of it, which is amazing.
Right. And I know Magali will have a lot to say to help us out with the other linkage, which is that we want to line up with FoodX2, FSA's FoodX2. Magali's done a lot of work on Transform
Yes.
On.
And I'm just mentioning in the chat that I have already imported these as qualifiers. And I also have some textual definition, but I can share with you. It is in the last release, and unfortunately, at this moment, AgroPortal is moving from another to another hosting system, but I can share in the Google Sheet. I guess we have to work together on these definitions.
Yeah, great. So let's
And just a question, just as you mentioned, for ripeness, food ripeness state, in FoodOn, you only have it under food ripeness. And I was just thinking that it is not only fruit, perhaps also cheese, or how can we deal with this?
right, very good. Love it. So
You know me now.
right. Yes. Controversy already within the first session.
Action.
That's right. That's right. So I remember that question arising in the past. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to add, I'm just going to go to the fruit ripeness question here first. So we're going to get into process here. We've got to figure out, because I don't know the answers, we got to figure out a process for moving through each list in each term. Um, Bouncing off what's already in FoodOn, what's out there in FoodX2, what you've thought about and what others have thought about and their need for these terms and distinctions. So what I'm going to just pop in here is the fruit ripeness term. It won't be right in the MIFC menu. I'll add the definition and then just take a peek at these definitions that we're looking at revising. So I'll just borrow, I'm looking in Protege right now, grabbing a couple of elements of the term and oops. And just adding some other information. Okay, so just a moment about the style of term definitions that FoodOn is operating with. We're using the Aristotelian style in which any underlying term should make reference to the parent definition and then spell out the difference that makes it, this category, distinct from its peers. So we call that the differentiae, and generally we're hoping that the differentiae follow in an expression after the parent class or concept has been named. So that's why these are a little bit more long-winded, these definitions. You've got the whole fruit ripeness thing spelled out. Whether you have to add any other words to sort of locate or make sense in English is a case-by-case basis. Okay, so that's one topic. And then another topic about these definitions is what kind of word is this? So here we've got the word characteristic. And indeed, when we think of MIFC, minimum information about food composition, we can imagine that a lot of these terms are characteristic or descriptive adjective words about the sample in question. And so in the whole oboe foundry land, BFO2 and other upper level ontologies, this concept of characteristic or quality, that's the branch that we often find ourselves in. So FoodOn has this food material characteristic, and indeed we are limiting ourselves mostly to food characteristics, although cans and other kinds of containers also have characteristics, so that shows up. But so food ripeness down here under food plant physical quality. This food plant physical quality is a FoodOn term I see. one of the things we did in dealing with all of these current characteristics and classes is we've inherited a bit of stuff from Languel, so we have to re-question the Languel definitions as we go along. So, so Magali has here ripeness towards that question of expanding this fruit ripeness definition. And so I'm going to pop that in over here, the comment. And I think some of our decisions could be iterated over in the FoodOn Curation ontology, FoodOn ontology curation document, but I think, to see the rest of the work right in these spreadsheets or comments on cells. I'm just going to put Magali's name here. And she's pointing out that the parent classes in the PO2 ontology, which is related. Should we, Magali, should I be talking about the PO2 or transform on?
We can simplify and say transform on because I say PO2 because it is the core ontology in my world, but let's say transform on. It's no problem. I can share with you the URL in AgroPortal. You will see that I have the both name, but now I'm using transform on. The prefix will be transform on the URI.
Okay. So maturity level is the parent class here in your world. So I guess I'd like to open it up to the floor about this idea of just generalizing this, the description of all four of these things to what we're talking about here with food plant material.
It's because it could also apply to cheese.
Okay, so and you guys do already do that, is that right, at INRAE?
I do. I don't know.
Right, so comments are, comments, INRAE applies to cheese, and therefore this goes beyond plant. Right, plant material or cheese. So, and avocado is a fruit technically, tomatoes are fruits. Can we think of cases where this ripeness applies beyond fruit? I guess another thing about, I see IDEO, yeah, comment?
Yeah, I wanted to ask Magali, you say that ripe is the state at which a food product has reached its optimal quality and palatability. That's a subjective matter, isn't it? Some
yes,
people
it's
say
a qualitative one. Yes, it's quite subjective,
some people
but
would
it was.
say
Yes,
some people would
sorry.
say that cheese reaches its optimal quality and palatability when it's overripe.
Yes, I understand that it is difficult, but it is because there was the other proposal which are overripe. And yes, optimal. We can skip this. We can change this definition. It's just a proposal because I'm still working on. It was just to say that we can already discuss on this. But yes, you are right. What is optimal? It's not because I think that overripe. Yes. The definition is mentioning that it has undergoing decomposition, but yes, I agree, it can be also a qualitative, a positive for somebody, a positive quality.
Yeah. I mean, in fruit, it's clear that overripe is then it's decomposing already. Is that also true for cheese? I'm wondering.
Yes, because in fact, ripening is a kind of decomposition by bacteria. It's a kind of degradation of
Yeah.
enzymatically a modification, but a kind of degradation, let's say. I
So
don't know.
can we separate here the means, the intention of the use of the object, the fruit, the material, from a description of its characteristic? So I would hope, I would think from an ontological perspective that fruit ripeness could be described by what is observed, its observed state, rather
Yes,
than by the intention that that's why it's considered useful for some purpose.
yes, but it's the case for any characteristics, I guess. Any qualitative characteristics
Right.
should be observed by some descriptors,
Yeah. So,
measurement.
but just to say that the language of observing or the process of observing is not about whether I can use this thing in
Mhm.
some optimal level, but rather that this is the state the thing is in. So,
I would suggest to change as rich a quality characterized by desired levels of sweetness. I don't know. We can change. We can not say optimal, but say it's a quality and palatability, a level of quality, because that's it. Because you have a scale: ripe, overripe, unripe, slightly ripe. So you have to consider the different stages.
right. So if we were, um, so I have my eye on the FoodOn definition,
Mhm.
of course. So if we were to change the transform on one right now
Mhm.
to move it to where,
I'm very open to any suggestion.
okay, I think we would start first of all by not talking about a food product. Um,
Yes, I know because we have food material in FoodOn. I know.
that's right. So a uh, you could even say organism material because it's not even necessarily food. Um, and this is where we get into the whole issue that we're trying to press these ontologies towards the biomaterial kind of flexibility of use. It could be going to food. It could be going to make alcohol for fuel. What do you think about that? Are we dealing
I
with
think we
Then
can. Sorry,
then it
Guido.
wouldn't apply to cheese, right?
It can still apply to cheese. We're not saying if we offer up a concept that's at a general level, such as organic material. Ah, right, right. So cheese is a fermented process and it's an animal material.
Mm.
So we can't even say necessarily organism material. So we're all the way up into the, can we even say organism material out of cheese about
No,
cheese?
because it's a substance,
Right.
let's
Okay.
say.
So a material, we're operating at a really level, general level at the moment for this. So let's start with material. Ah, so it sounds to me like we might have to have two different terms, one to cover cheese, but let's just try this here. Okay. A material, the quality of a material, the characteristic of a material, which describes, and here's where we get
A level of
uh, can we
yes, but
generalize?
my characteristics apply to food, sweetness, texture, and flavor. That's quite observable.
Okay. So
A
indeed,
food material will be a food material would be great.
right. Okay. Let's limit it to food material. Characteristic of a food material which describes, and can we talk about the idea that this is there anything in cheese which is fermented that's in common with fruit, which can also be fermented, but is this ripening process a step removed from fermentation, or is fermentation just a subset of what's happening with ripening?
I think ripening is a consequence of fermentation.
Right. Okay.
But you have the fermentation for cheese making and the fermentation for cheese ripening, which is different.
Okay.
But anyway, I don't think it is very important to specify cheese. For cheese, it is indeed fermented, but I don't think it is so much useful in this description of ripeness.
Mm-hmm. So for cheese, would you just have ripe? And okay, so this gets us towards that we've been so flexible with our language that we're applying these terms to very different substances. So we have kind of a parallel definition.
Yes, depending on the object it applies to.
And so in that case, sometimes in the ontology business, we would just leave these things defined in English and we would back off trying to be really specific about them. So that is an option for us here. So we could just be really loose and say the characteristic of a food material which describes its it's a bit circular to say ripeness in the definition. We would get faulted for that. The quality. Hmm, uh, but there is something we could say about that this is an aging process. So um, the which okay, so I wanted to say uh, of aging. And the aspects I want are these taste qualities. I think we could say that is the effect. So all this work is towards trying to fit both cheese and fruit into the same category. I guess I'll also say some of this work and some of our curation calls might reach a dead end, but we've got to do it in order to kind of solve the issue or show that we've gone through the process. So taste qualities resulting from an aging.
Ryanon is mentioning that in the definition in the Wikipedia page of cheese ripening, they mention ripening agents. Of course, that's the microbes and the microorganisms, but do you think, I think that for fruit, you can also have some molds and some, so it is also some agent in action.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not different.
Okay, all sorts of factors around how ripening occurs, harvesting.
I mean, ripening agents could be another fruit. If you put two fruits together, it'll help
Yes,
each other
it's
ripen,
another.
etc. So it could be a lot of
Yes,
things.
right. So I think that would be a modeling question that we would handle on the side. But how do so an aging or how about an aging or fermentation process? Also to say we can let these definitions sit and percolate and ripen to see. Okay. So here a new term might be um, um, tu- 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 tu. So fruit ripeness, food material ripeness. So if we're to any feedback about this? Taste qualities, maybe it's not just taste. Organoleptic. Organoleptic meaning sensory qualities that a perceiver would have in relation to that thing. But maybe this language is too foreign for our audience. We want something.
No, it's just to have an example, but we can discuss this in a GitHub issue also. But just to pose to ask the question,
Yeah.
how can we manage? How can we work together on this?
Right. So it raises that we should include an example column with each of the terms that we're working on. And so I'm going to fix view. Okay, so will there be a need for GitHub issues? Yeah. Right. Okay. So that can be something we do either real time um, or after having the talk through, which is to develop an actual issue that matches this.
And then just to complete things, for the other, I don't use, perhaps overwrite, I can apply it to cheese also as Ido suggested. But I think that unripe or slightly, I don't know if we have to generalize. It was a question because I was not sure from my side what to do.
Okay, can you say that once more? I missed it.
Sorry, I say that I have also copied the definition for overripe, slightly ripe, and unripe, but then I have not mentioned cheese, but it's still a question.
Right, right. Okay, and that just reminds me that these terms could be approached as characteristics.
Yes, that's right.
Or stages of.
But I'm not sure about stages because for me it was a maturity level. So
Yes.
it is a quality. Anyway, it is a characteristics, but I was wondering if we have to mention that there is different levels.
Yes.
I think the problem with cheese is that basically it's palatable in almost all stages, right? So
yes.
So there's not really. I mean, we use the words ripe, perhaps, but you have very young, fresh cheeses and very old cheese.
Yes.
They're both in their own way ripe.
You would prefer old or young as a qualifier or characteristic?
Yeah.
So
perhaps it's a solution, yes.
Maturity
But
level.
we do use ripening for cheese, so I was just wondering.
Exactly. Yeah. So
right, okay. So
one of those complex cases.
Sorry, this is a cheese matter.
Okay, so this is good. So often for every characteristic, there is a process term related to it.
Yes, that's it.
So we will definitely have ripening as a process.
Yes.
And that can stand alone, separate from the stages or characteristics. Now, stage is a spatial-temporal thing
Yes.
in the obofoundry world, obo land, cob land, BFO land, and other ontologies. So a spatial temporal region that you can maybe define the ends, the boundaries of time-wise, or maybe not exactly. So I totally understand why stage was used here for
Because
these.
it's like my step, you know.
Yes, and that's totally valid. So to have maturity level be apparent here for so maturity level in this sense is also a stage, which is a spatiotemporal region within which the physical thing is located. So in other words, there's a piece of cheese somewhere or an apple somewhere that is located in space and time, and you're not just considering it a snapshot when you say a stage, you're considering that region during which it's called overripe, or the overripeness is here referring to the stage. So for disambiguation, I think what Obo would say is you should probably just put the word stage.
Yes.
And that tells us
That's a stage.
yeah,
That's a temporal region,
stage
spatio-temporal region.
tells us that this extended across some period of time.
Mm. Nice.
And therefore, the other term that comes up in this world, which Obo is backing away from, but fiat boundary. There's this boundary in space or in time or both that you can't quite define in terms of Boolean logic, but we might just leave it in our language, natural language, to say that there is a boundary between overripe and ripe. Say
But is that still a characteristics or not?
it isn't. That's the
It
catch.
isn't, yes. It applies to entity qualities or characteristics are only for material entities.
Yeah. So we've got here a tussle between using these terms as adjectives at some point in time, which would be a characteristic. Characteristic can also apply to something over time, but it's the characteristic rather than the thing. So we
But
don't.
I would prefer the characteristic. I
Okay.
can change stage if you prefer.
Okay.
I don't know what is best, but I guess it's more it's simpler to use characteristics.
Yeah. So I think if we're talking about tips to curators.
Yes, we have a complicated example. Sorry for the beginners. I don't know if there is some beginners, but
You
sorry.
bet. So tips for curators. If you want to describe ripeness state, use ripeness characteristic. If from that you could compose a term such as overripe stage. Ripeness characters such as overripe. It applies to some material, food material, which may be aging over time. And so it's just that curators could compose for which is a duration, is a duration and material combo region. I'm using tech talk here. I would try to redo this in terms of presenting to people, but fitting to the
You have two options. Yes, because Ryan is mentioning that stage is okay, but stage may still be involved in the axioms. What is the question, Ryan? Perhaps you can ask if you can.
Yes. So this is it. we have these terms which are either characteristics, and then we say statements like this apple X123 is ripe. And so instead of we saying the word is, we use the word, the phrase, the relation has characteristic, ripe. And we mean some time t. And to say that it's in a stage of ripeness is to start making references to when it started being ripe and when it ended being ripe. So it's often better to just focus on this has the characteristic, satisfying a has characteristic ripeness, rather than this apple X123 exists. What's the relation for is part of some.
Ah oui, temporal, spatial temporal.
That's right. It's part of some spatial temporal region, and that region, probably would say that region has characteristic ripe. Now to think of it. So
I do agree that characteristic is simpler.
that's right. So now plants, I'm doing some work over in the agricultural area. I see it's 9:56, so we've got to wrap this up and probably go away, think a bit, and come back to this to try to push it to resolution on an issue. Next time we talk, we can discuss how to handle existing items and pushing forward to new items.
But Kai, what do you think? Is that useful if I copy and paste my suggestion in the Google Sheet or not? Do you manage this or not? Or it is just for the current FoodOn Curation? Because do you have some definition on your side?
No, I think that in terms of specifically for USDA and MIFC, we already are just going to use whatever is in FoodOn for these. And so none of this is going to help with that. However, it's useful to define these things. I think the really important ones that I'd like to see done at some point are the food preservation states. David, if you could just quickly look at this one. Like there's things just like 19 raw, shelf-stabled, pickled, pasteurized, like a few of these things, like that's really the important stuff that needs to be in FoodOn or maybe Transformon already has this. Maybe FoodOn already has this.
Yes, I have some suggestions.
Yeah.
Yes.
So for me, these are the very most important things. I think the discussion of ripeness states is nice, but
no, it was just an example. Yes, I agree
for sure.
But yes, I can copy and paste anyway, and you can do what you want. We can discuss
for sure.
on this.
This is all the open source shared stuff. This is FoodOn development. So USDA doesn't have to use any of these things. Or same with INRA, right? You don't have to use it, but you could if you wanted to.
But I like to map things, so we have to agree on the description and definition.
Perfect. Yeah.
It's quite useful. I think.
Yeah, no, that's great. So maybe this is actually like the starting point for something great, which is that FoodOn is the mapping point between what INRA, USDA, and RIVM are all saying about something. So maybe Damien, you could add you could add a column for like her and like RIVM and Transformon and say like, okay, this is their use case, and then maybe that can be the start of a mapping.
Yeah. To consolidate characteristics, okay, I'll just say a few brief things. So we actually have an existing FoodOn robot table list of characteristics and some past work from a few years ago trying to get at what the definition chain differences are between FDA, I think FoodX2, here. So what I'll do is I'll move this particular characteristic tab over to this new spreadsheet. And the other thing I'm going to do just for this example is I'll create a diagram which shows process, characteristic, stage. And that can be used for people to locate what a precomposed term such as ripe is versus them wanting to actually post-compose some stages and so on. It's possible for the vocabulary to be developed so that there's a word in each for the process, for the characteristic, and for the stage. We're doing that a bit in the plant world where people are trying to describe bio samples of plant at certain stages of development. So I get that both are really important.
And I think this is much more complicated because of these different kind of levels. But then for the other adjective you mentioned for preservation, I think it is simpler because it's
Well,
evident. I guess, I hope.
yes. What I do perceive is that there are some hidden hierarchies in here. So we'll need to sort those out. For example, there are kinds of drying. There are kinds of, so there's a hierarchy hidden in some of these items too that we'll have to figure out. And I'll bring up past diagram work that we can add into it. There are sorts of steps and processes that are leading to these characteristic terms that that need.
It would be lovely to reanimate. I don't think it is okay in English, but to take this on again because we have a lot of work already done on this.
Yes, and this is where all of your help can really work, and we'll see maybe trying some delegation steps here too.
Fine.
Okay, folks, I can see you there.
Nice to meet you. Sorry, I'm too verbose. See you next time, hopefully.
Right.
Thanks, everyone.
Yes.
Okay, folks, I'll wrap it up and stop the recording. Thanks.